it is really important that we begin to change the mindset of young people to know that your vote counts.
They don't understand that the legislative arm of government is actually a co-equal arm of government.
We have an incredible amount of potential.
Whatever it is I was doing, because of my personal DNA, it had to be of an international standard.
Which is what, seriously speaking, is all about.
Hello there. Come October 1, next Saturday, most people in Lagos will be walking. Hopefully, a lot of people will come out to walk to raise awareness for cerebral palsy. For those of you who've never heard about it, this is an opportunity to learn a little bit about what this disorder, or I'm not even sure I'm saying the right thing, but cerebral palsy is a disability that there's still ability in it if only you knew. Now, we're telling the story about cerebral palsy and other such ailments along the lines of fatherhood, because very rarely do you find a father who will come out to say, this is the problem I experienced with my son, but it's changed me and it's made me better. And now I'm walking the cause for cerebral palsy. So as I begin a series talking about fatherhood, I start with a guest who's going to educate us a little bit about what cerebral palsy is all about, but more than that, what it takes to be a great father in a nation like ours. This is Seriously Speaking. I'll be back shortly with my guest on the show today. My guest today runs an NGO, doesn't want to call it that, a foundation that's called BENOLA, a cerebral palsy initiative. And this NGO is about 6 years old, I presume, but he's lived 20 years of his life managing a son that has cerebral palsy. So it's my pleasure to welcome to the show today, AVM Femi Badebo. You're welcome to Seriously Speaking.
Thank you so much for having me here.
What happened to all those? Maybe it's the AVM I started off with. AVM actually means Air Vice Marshal.
Yes.
You spent 35 years in the Navy.
Air Force.
Air Force, doing what?
I spent the best part of my life as an instructor pilot, teaching people how to fly fast jet airplanes in Kano. In fact, I spent 19 years in Kano doing that. And then at the time when the service thought I'd done enough flying, moved me to Jaji, where I served as in directing staff and the air faculty. And a little bit later, I was also on the faculty at the War College, which is now known as Defense College in Abuja. So in essence, my career as a military man was more of a teacher. And one thing I learned in that course is that teaching is really about passing on knowledge. It's about making sure that the people you're carrying along understand what they're being taught. Mm-hmm. So for me, it's not about somebody coming first or coming last. Mm-hmm. It's about the whole team finishing well. Finishing well.
So when you retired, when you retired, you said you didn't want to do anything else but teach.
Well, you see, essentially, I spent my life teaching. Mm-hmm. And one of the books I ran into, or the characters I ran into in the course of working in a staff college is a Chinese author called Sun Tzu. Mm-hmm. And I read a little bit about him, and I found him awesome, and I did actually some teaching on it. And then I was quite surprised one day when I ran into a friend who's a banker, and I saw, a book about Sun Tzu and management. And ever since then, I started to realize that, you see, there is so much that the military can teach the private sector. Mm-hmm. About business, about management, both human and resources. And so on retiring, I decided that, maybe what I should do is to see how I could pass on this knowledge to the business sector. Unfortunately, it didn't work out as I thought, because when you don't have a degree, a master's, a PhD, you're not attractive to the business or private sector, so to speak. But the reality is that the man who's teaching theory, it's just teaching theory.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But when you deal with a military man who spent 35 years leading men, leading with managing resources and so on, you're dealing with a bundle of practical experience on how to do this.
Oh, well, I find that interesting because we don't really give a lot of credit to the military around here. The thinking is that it's the ne'er-do-wells that went into the military,
Well, we do have our characters in the military.
Yeah.
And somehow they seem to get a lot more publicity.
I mean, it has people like you had spent 35 years in the Air Force. Wow.
Well, you see, the thing really is, I believe if you're good, the system uses you to do good. And when they want to do bad, they know who to pick out to do the bad things. The end result is that when it comes to writing papers, writing position papers, and stuff like that, doing presentations, you probably get people like me do them. But when it comes to like holding a political appointment, like a governor or something, or organizing some entertainment, I think they just know you wouldn't do that, you know, and so they don't pull you into it. And the end result is that we end up with a lot more mediocres in positions of authority. It's happening even in government, in various parts of government.
At least in this country.
Yeah.
No, but okay, well, the reason I invited you here is because you've been such... I met you at the summit for people living with disabilities, with the CDC celebrating, trying to create a community around people who live with disabilities. And you shared the story of your last son, Olaoluwa, and how he changed your life. And I found it very inspiring, because in most cases where I've dealt with a lot of people with children with disabilities, we see their mothers more than we see their fathers. In some cases, the fathers disappear once a child has one form of disability or the other. So sharing your story was quite inspiring to me, and I said, look, we must share this with my viewers. And I'm glad that you took the opportunity to come. Tell us about Olaoluwa. I want to know what it was like the first time he was born. He's now 20 years old. Yeah.
Olaoluwa is a very, very interesting young man, full of life, even though he is fully dependent. By that I mean at 20 he still wears diapers. He has a feeding tube. He developed scoliosis at about 8, 9, and we had a surgery for him and at the age of 14. And so he has 3 titanium rods holding his spinal cord together at the back. He's extremely fragile because of all these things. And so I call him, I call him my bionic man. But even at that, he's a bundle of joy to live with. When he was born, we discovered immediately that there were some issues. He was premature, 35, 36 weeks gestation. He spent the first couple of weeks in an incubator. He couldn't even suckle, so they had to use, like a syringe to feed him and all that. And subsequently, when he came home, he also still could not suckle. He still had issues with neck control and so on. And of course, he was very irritable. But very nice looking baby.
Yeah, good looking.
And, one of the things that I've learned so many things in life, it's like if you're sick and you go to the doctor and the doctor gives you medication and doesn't bother to call you, you're not really sick. But when the doctor says there's no problem, go and rest, then he keeps calling you every few hours to say, how are you feeling?
You know something's
wrong. There's a problem. And that's what happened with Olaoluwa. Everybody said there's no problem. But even the doctor started bringing him gifts at home, And it was when he was 6 months old. By then, I was in Lagos. They were in Kano. And then they moved to join me in December 1996. And my sister-in-law came to see me. She's a doctor. That is Mrs. Alera Roberts. She has a son who has Down syndrome, much older than Laulu. And you see, it takes one to know one. She just looked at him and said, there's something wrong with this boy.
And he was just a few months old.
He was about 6 months old then. And we said, yeah, they said it's okay. So, no, I don't think it's okay. She said, look, you better take him to see Shay, who's her husband, Shay Roberts. And that's how we went to see Shay. And to be honest with you, he gave a diagnosis that is spot on. Even though we didn't believe him at that time.
Why not?
You see, because he just said, after doing his test, he said, Madam, this is cerebral palsy, and there's nothing that can be done about it. So don't go running up and down looking for a cure. Live with it. And it was rough.
So, I mean, what's cerebral palsy?
It's cerebral, as I say, refers to the brain. Palsy is about tissue, muscles, controls, and so on. So it's a situation where you have brain damage. Not that the person's brain is dead or bad, but it's like there's a breakage in the signal from the part of the brain that controls motor movement to your limbs. The end result is that the person with cerebral palsy knows what they want to do,
but they can't do it.
They have difficulty in doing it.
Like, I want to lift this now.
Yes, they have difficulty in doing it. There's coordination issue, so they can see it, and they're struggling trying to get there. At initial stage, that's what it is. And if it's not a severe case, that's probably what it is the rest of their lives. If it's a severe case, they also begin to get into stiffness, you know, because they startle easily, they have seizures, they have all kinds of... So a child with cerebral palsy will always hold on to something, maybe their wheelchair or something, you know, whatever it is, and they can forget. So they can hold on to something with a dead squeeze for an hour or more. Now, what happens to you if you don't mobilize? Your body begins to take those shapes. And that's why you'd find a child that could maybe crawl, by the time they're going to 4 or 5 years old, will lose that ability to crawl, and then they'll begin to get into all kinds of body distortions. Some of them, especially when they don't take the right medications.
So that way they look funny to those of us who don't know what's going on.
Yes, you see, any part of your body that you don't exercise for a limited amount of time will lose function and will even begin to go stiff. You know, that's why you find paraplegics, people who have had spinal cord injury, their legs tend to be a little bit smaller than the rest of the body because they're not mobilizing that body, they're not ambulating it. And so with a child that has CP, that is not getting
CP, cerebral palsy. That's the easy name for it.
Yeah, CP. That is not getting medication like muscle relaxants, that is not getting things for seizure control, that is not getting a lot of physiotherapy to keep moving and mobilizing the body. By the time they're 5, 6 years old, they're in very bad shape. So, physically.
When you got that, first, it must have been devastating. But what was most devastating? Was it the fact that, oh, I have a son like this, why me? Or was it that, oh, what's going to happen to this boy? Was it about him or about you at the beginning?
Well, you see, at the beginning, it wasn't really a problem because he's always been very, very pleasurable. One of the things Laulu started doing very early in life is to blow kisses. Any small thing, he blows you a kiss. And you realize you can communicate with him because even when you're upset or when you're feeling down, he blows you a kiss, you know. Then I think I was fortunate to have lived with disability as a child, in the sense that in primary school, I had classmates who had polio.
Oh, yeah.
Who used to wear braces in those days and come out and play football. I had 1 or 2 deaf and dumb or blind kids in school. You see, public school, when I was young, was as good as some of the private schools we have in Lekki and so on. So these kids came. The teachers were very accommodating. And even where you tried to make fun of them or bully them or ignore them, you see, when it came to exams and they trashed you, you started to respect them. And I don't know any disabled, educated person who's not focused. I think there's an anger in, first of all, there's ability in disability.
Absolutely.
That is a fact.
We've learned
but there's also a determination to prove to you that they deserve to be where they are. So they work extra hard.
So you were not worried because of the sensibility that you had?
No, I wasn't, well, I wasn't worried, but I didn't also believe that it was going to be a lifelong lasting thing. You see, the fact that disability or cerebral palsy cannot be cured, I think I came to terms with it much later. So, like every other parent, we tried everything we could. You know, that was a period when, because of the problem between Abacha government and all, you couldn't even get a visa to go out. The Air Force was going to help.
Well, my director said, you take a break, now I can go to the market. I'll take a break. Because it's a good time to take a break. At this point where clearly, as parents, you didn't just sit back.
No.
You wanted to fight back and at least find something to make his life better. So I'll be right back with AVM if you don't go away.